Good morning, ladies. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I know you missed me. Caroline, don't make that face. Don't even have to be there to know you're making a face. All right, so we've got writing. Don't forget, I know this is writing, but don't forget we have a test in reading on Thursday. So tomorrow, when we come together, I may be back tomorrow. I'm not sure. But tomorrow, when we come together in reading, when you're down in Miss Van Zant's room, you'll be doing a combination reading and writing. That way, we free up time so you can take that test on Thursday, okay? So, writing. Tuesday, October the 6th. Should have started with your bell ringer. Bell ringer, if you did not start with your bell ringer, stop the video now and finish it. You guys are pretty good about it, and you've been doing awesome with your bell ringer. So thank you. Your bell ringer this time was you have just been put on assignment to be the next astronaut to go to the moon. You will be gone on this mission in space for over a year. What are you feeling? What do you think the journey will be like? Explain in detail. Okay, you've been doing awesome. This time I want some more detail. So try to give me more than just 4 or 5 sentences. So do your regular, respond to the prompt, restate and answer the question. Then when you're citing your evidence and you're giving me the explanation, the big ideas, give me some details. Tell me what it's going to be like in outer space, okay? What do you think's going to happen? What are you feeling? Are you scared? Are you nervous? Are you excited? What is it that's going on there? Okay. So if you didn't do that, even if you did the bell ringer, but you didn't do that, give me extra details. You might stop the video now and go back and do it. Just try to add some things in. Paint a picture for me. It's called imagery. We'll be dealing with it later. But so just think about that. All right. Time for review. We've been in this long process. You wrote me a paper. You gave your opinion on one of these 6 prompts. You chose your own. Then we used our WWF to write an introduction paragraph. Then we cited our evidence on our big ideas. And you ended up at the very end with an introduction paragraph, reasons and examples for your big ideas, like the 3 paragraphs in the middle. And then your conclusion paragraph was at the very end. And we went through that. I did videos on all of those. If you feel like you need to work on any component there, go back and look at those videos. They're still on the classwork page. So that's what we've been working through. We began our process of peer editing, and that was where we talked about it's a process where we work together to help each other with our written work. And we said you start by complimenting the person that wrote it. Tell them what they did right, because we all do something right in our paper. And then after you've done that, you were supposed to make specific suggestions. Like you were supposed to look at the word choice, things that were kind of confusing. Use of details. Wanted you to look at their organization. Did they use their WWF and write all their sentences and keep it in order? Did they have an introduction paragraph, then their big ideas, then their conclusion? Did they do everything in the organization as it was supposed to be? And then you were supposed to look at sentence length, and then whether or not they stayed on topic. And you all did a real good job of that, gave some great suggestions to each other. And then we talked about step 3. We said step 3 is where you look for spelling, grammar, and punctuation mistakes. And I talked about how we were going to put together our editing journal, which you guys started on. And you did your first, you started what I call a peer editing checklist. It's a do-it-yourself. So if you don't have someone to look over your paper, you can check your own for proper grammar, punctuation. And so that's what that peer editing journal is for. So we started with capitalization. Remember? We did that. We went over 6 rules, 7 rules. I think it's 6 rules. Went over 6 rules and examples. And then you did a sheet for me, which you need you to turn in today. So turn that sheet in, give it to the substitute, and then I'll look over it when I get back. So we did capitalization, and that was our first section of our peer editing journal. Our first section of our peer editing journal was capitalization. So today we're going to get into new content. And so after we look for capitalization problems, the next place where most students, and not even students, most people, adults, teachers, everybody, have trouble, how and why to use commas. Okay? Commas are confusing. But we're going to have a little list where you can go through and check and say, hey, did I have any of these? If I did, I need to add commas. Or if I put commas in the wrong spot, if they don't meet one of our rules, then we don't do it, okay? So let's take a look. The thing's not wanting to go. So our first comma rule, we use commas to separate 3 or more items or elements in a series. So again, summarizing, I don't want to write all of this. I don't have to write all of this. So how about we use a comma to separate 3 or more items? Does that work? 3 or more items in a series. And in the example, I ate pork, potatoes, and bread. She ran out the door, jumped in the car, and sped off down the road. And in both these, we had 3 things listed in what we call a series. So they were one right after another. And so this is probably the easiest one. I ate pork, potatoes, and bread. So pork, comma, potatoes, comma, and bread. She ran out the door, comma, jumped in the car, comma, and sped off down the road, right? Because these are 3 different things that she did and ate. Okay, so stop the video here, write your rule, and then write one of these 2 examples, and then write one of your own. Okay, so our second rule, do use a comma between 2 adjectives, only when the word and could be inserted in its place. What? All right, let's look at an example. Jason is a handsome, comma, charming boy. So you see, you could have said Jason is handsome and charming, right? But you can take that and out and just put a comma. So let me think. Caroline is I was going to be playful, but Caroline is an amazing, comma, hardworking student. Ava is an amazing, comma, hardworking student. See, I could also say Ava is an amazing and hardworking student. I put that and in. So wherever you could put an and when you're using adjectives to describe, remember, adjectives describe a noun. So anytime we're using like multiple adjectives, so use a comma between 2 adjectives instead of an and. Make sense? I hope so. Write down your rule, and I would write it. Use a comma between 2 adjectives instead of an and. And then my example, I would write this example. Jason is a handsome, comma, charming boy. And then I want you to write one of your own. So you're going to use two adjectives to describe someone or something and use a comma instead of and. Okay, do that now. All right, so we've had two rules so far, using commas in series and then using a comma to separate two adjectives. Our third rule is use a comma before and after a word or phrase that renames a noun. Use a comma before and after a word or phrase that renames a noun. So an example, George, comma, my oldest brother, comma, has red hair. So my oldest brother tells us who he is. I could say Donald Trump, comma, the president of the United States, comma, is in the hospital. Right? So the president of the United States renames the noun, President Trump or Donald Trump. Albany, comma, New York's capital, comma, is a big city. I could say my school, comma, Anchorage, comma, is a wonderful place to learn. So use a comma before and after a word or phrase that renames a noun. All right, so just to make sure you see that, Albany is the noun, right? New York's capital is what's renaming it. George is the noun. My oldest brother is renaming it. Okay? Got it? I sure do hope so. You can stop the video now and write the rule. Use a comma before or after a word. Let's just say before or after a phrase that renames a noun. And then use one of these two examples and then come up with one of your own. All right. Next rule. Use a comma when a sentence begins with an introductory word or phrase, such as well, yes, therefore, for example, or on the other hand. Let's take a look at an example. Our example would be, great if my computer was moving. There it goes. Yes, you can stay up an extra hour. Or if one of you said, Mr. Stewart, can I go to the restroom? Yes, comma, you may run to the restroom. Ask your parents, can I have a snack? Yes, you can have a snack. Or no, it's almost dinner. So when it begins with an introductory word or phrase, we put a comma. However, you must still wake up on time. So see, however, comma, you must still wake up on time. See how they kind of don't go together. It's not smooth. However, you still must wake up. You need a comma there to separate because remember, think about how you would say it. If you would pause when you say it, there has to be some kind of punctuation there. And a lot of times that's that comma. So if you said, asked your parents, can I stay up late tonight? They would more than likely respond by going, yes, you can stay up an extra hour. So they would pause there, right? And then all the rest kind of flows together. So when you hear those pauses, a lot of times that's a comma, especially at the beginning. So, however, you must still wake up on time, right? Because however is not a complete sentence. So I can't just put a period there. It doesn't give me a subject, a predicate, anything like that. So, however, you must still wake up on time. There's that pause, so that's where the comma goes. Let's look at another. On the other hand, you could simply go to bed now. Can you hear how maybe your parents would say that and how that would come out? So you have to think about, remember, when we're writing, all we're doing is transferring spoken words into text. So think about how it would be said to you. So let's write our rule. Use a comma when a sentence begins with an introductory word or phrase. And in the examples, you can pick one of these examples and then give me one of your own. Okay, so we're stuck again in my Chromebook. I like working on my computer at the house and not on this Chromebook because it does not want to move. Let's see what happens. There it goes. It's moving now. Give me a second because I really don't want to restart this video because, like you, I don't want to have to do a bunch of extra work. What? I've already been going for about 15 minutes. All right, next rule, number 5. Use a comma before and after a word used as an interrupter, such as however. So like if we're in the middle of a sentence, I might say, you say, Mr. Stewart, what's your favorite movie? My favorite movie is Ford versus Ferrari. However, I did like Cinderella Man as well. So you see, I put an interrupter in there in the middle, right? So again, it's always, and I know it's hard to do, you just write and you just throw stuff out there. But especially when we're going back through to edit, we have to think about how it would be said. We have to stop and say, okay, if I was reading this to someone, if I was telling someone this story, how would I say it? And so the dog, however, still needs to be taken outside. So you see the however, it's not necessary. It could be left out. And that's the thing. Generally, when you put commas around something in the middle of a sentence, it can be left out. You take it out and the sentence still makes sense. See, the dog still needs to be taken outside. The however just adds something. It's like you're telling them, I've told you you could do this, but the dog, however, still needs to go out. You can go play with your sister, but the dog still needs to be taken out. The dog, however, still needs to go out. Okay. So that's rule number 5. Use a comma before or after a word used as an interrupter. So before or after a word used as an interrupter, we also saw that we use a comma before and after a phrase that's describing someone. And then we talked about an introductory phrase. So then the commas in a series. So you've got 5 rules now, right? All right. So write this rule down. Comma before or after a word used as an interrupter. And in your example, the dog, however, still needs to be taken outside. And I want you to write one of your own. All right. Rule number 6. Do use a comma between a city and state and after the state if the sentence continues. So it's kind of easy, but then it's kind of tricky too, that second part. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, right? So anytime I have a city and a state, I put a comma there. The tricky part is you have to put one after the state also if you're going to keep on with the sentence. So if that just stopped with, I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, that'd be a period. But because you kept going, you had to put another comma. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Lake Charles, Louisiana, over 30 years ago. All right. So rule number 6, use a comma between a city and a state and after the state if the sentence continues. This is kind of a short one. And then write your example, and then I want you to give me an example of your own. Okay, do that now. 7, last rule. Use a comma to separate the day of the month from the year and after the year. Okay, so it's pretty much the same as that last rule, except you're using day of the month and year. See an example? We moved to Texas on February 29th, 2000. So we had comma after 29th, and then we have to put a comma after 2000 because we're going to keep going and have lived here ever since. Now, if you stopped at 2000, you put a period. We moved to Texas on February 29th, comma, 2000. But because you kept going right here and have lived here ever since, then this has to be a comma. If this was gone, this would just be a period. But this would still be here. Always a comma between the 29, between your date and the year. Okay? Always a comma between the date and the year. But the comma only goes after the year if you keep the sentence moving on. So same thing as our last rule, right? It's the exact same rule. You list the city and the state, so city, comma, state, and then only a comma after the state, right here, if you keep going. If this wasn't here, that's a period. All right, easy enough, right? Let me get that erased real quick. Back to my pointer. Look at it, it's moving now. And oh, I lied. There's one more rule. I thought it was only 7. Use a comma when a sentence begins with a prepositional phrase, adverbial clause, or dependent clause. So anytime it's like a prepositional just tells a location. That's the real thing you're looking for, okay? Under the bridge, on the table. If I said under the bridge, the fog made it difficult to see. Under the bridge, comma, the fog made it difficult to see. If I said on the table, comma, you'll find 2 pencils and a notebook. So we started with where you find it. It's kind of out of the ordinary, right? Because usually we'd say you'll find the pencils and the notebook on the table, or the fog made it difficult to see under the bridge. But when you stick that where up at the front or location up at the front, that's when you need to put a comma, okay? So use a comma when a sentence begins with a prepositional phrase, adverbial clause, or dependent clause. Again, we need to write this whole rule out, okay? And then use this example, and then give me one of your own. Do your best. This is a hard one. All right. So we're going to skip rule number 9 for now. We'll come back to it later. I think 8 rules is enough for the time being. So now it's your turn. We're going to practice. 2 ways you're going to practice. Peer edit. You're going to look at the other person's paper again. Remember, when I get this paper, the final copy, I want this thing to be beautiful, which means you will have picked up all the capitalization errors, comma errors, and it's going to give us practice also, okay? So first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your partner's paper again, and this time you're looking for comma errors. Do you see any of these rules being broken in the paper? And can you give suggestions on how they might fix it? Then the second thing you're going to do is I have a sheet for you that you are going to do just some comma practice, okay? So those are your 2 writing assignments. Pretty easy. And I will put an IXL No, I think that's enough. Edit your partner's paper, but I'm expecting it to be perfect by the time I get it, okay? No comma errors. So edit your partner's paper and then do the sheet that the substitute will give you, okay? And I'll have probably some IXL practice tomorrow for you and that reading video review as well. All right. I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye bye.